Okay, so this is the squirrel cage blower that I'm going to use to power the sanding table. It is a Dayton. It's a pretty decent brand. This particular model has puts out 975 CFM, and that is free air with no filters, no load on it. So it actually puts out about 750 at a ½ inch of static pressure. So that's probably what we're going to be operating at here. More realistic number for it. I chose this one because it's a little bit smaller, it's a little more compact to fit in here. And these are available off the shelf. I'll put a link to where you can get this. It's going to go inside. It's going to sit kind of like this inside of here. I'm going to move it down towards the center. So we've got to cut a rectangle hole out of the side of this so that the exhaust can blow out the back of the sanding table. We'll go ahead and lay that out and get that started now. This is kind of a generic universal fit blower, so we're going to have to drill a couple holes into this bottom lip of the housing to screw it down to our table. Just lay those out, drilling a little hole through there, put a couple screws into it. So I've got the top of the table upside down here, getting ready to install all the filters. Pretty straightforward. Just put the filter tube over the ring and tighten down one of the stainless steel clamps around it. On the bottoms of the filters, you want to work from the center of the cabinet out. So clamp a 1x up on top and use it to hold up the other filters to get them out of your way while you're working in there. Same thing on this end, just get those filters up out of your way and work from the center out. And we are ready to start cutting the maple slats for the top of the table. Just cutting them into rough lengths for now, and I'll put a finished trim on them before I install them. So I'm using 13/16 stock, so I'm cutting 13/16 strips, and I will take those over to the planer and plane all four sides of them to make sure they're all exactly the same thickness. So this is just kind of a rough cut also. So I'm going to run all these strips through the planer to make sure they're all, I'm taking them down to 3/4 by 3/4. Once I get all of them run through on one side, I'll lay them out flat and put a little mark on the end of it so I know that side has been planed. After a while, they all look the same. And then I just flip them a quarter turn, run them through again, and then the final 2 passes on the other 2 sides will be the final thickness. So I run a test piece through and make sure it's the right before I do the rest of them. And here I'm just cutting them to final length, doing a big stack at one time. I have all the strips clamped together, and I'm laying out lines for the holes that will attach them to the top of the sanding table. 1 screw at each end and 1 in the middle. Take it over to my drill press and using a 3/8 Forstner bit to drill down about halfway through the slat to recess the head of the screw. So I'll change out that bit with this setup and go ahead and drill through the rest of the piece with a straight bit to allow some clearance for that screw. Okay, so we're ready to put the top slats on. We have 33 slats, and so that leaves 32 spaces. So what I did was the top is 47.5 long. I subtracted the width of the 33 spacers, and then I divided that by 32, and I came out with 705 thousandths. So I planed down some little spacers. That one's 704, pretty close. So we're using those for our spacers. I kind of laid it out here with a clamp to make sure everything is the right width because I want those spaces to be even. And so the next step will be to screw these all down to the top. Okay, so now we're going to be attaching the top slats, and I'm going to be using a 1.25" face frame screw. It's got a coarse thread. This is the number 7, and we're just going to start here in this the front edge and line them up with the front edge of the plywood. And just like that. Just putting an 1/8" round over on the edges and ends of all the slats. Just keep that edge from getting chipped off and make it a little bit smoother. I put the top on before I had the end of these side panels routed, so my router doesn't go all the way to the top, so I'll have to sand that by hand. But when you build this, go ahead and do it before you put the top on it. Here I'm putting a 1/8" round over on the dust chute cover, door, and also on the end panel, the upper end panel. A little finish sanding to round those off. So this dust chute door has to have some hinges on it so you can access that to clean out the dust. I put on these generic hinges here, and I ended up not liking them. Didn't like the look of them, so I ended up using a continuous aluminum piano hinge. But any way you want to do it, you just have to kind of fit that and sand a little bit off. You have to make it to fit right, because that door is the same width as the end panel, so There's not much clearance. Time to install the blower and get it all wired up. Here's my disclaimer. I'm not an electrician, and I'm not going to show you exactly how to do this, but this is a simple 120 volt motor with 2 wires and a ground. So if you've ever installed a ceiling fan or a light switch, it's pretty straightforward. If you don't feel comfortable with doing electrical work, find a friend that does, or hire an electrician, and it's not that hard to get it all wired up. I'm putting a switch to turn the motor on and off, and also an outlet to plug a sander or whatever into on the back side of this. You could also recess this box if you have a narrow doorway that you have to roll it through, but I just surface mounted it. Putting these end panels back on for hopefully the final time. Once this is all closed up, you shouldn't have to access that area for any kind of routine maintenance or anything. The filters are clean from the bottom. Putting a hardware cloth screen across here, I had a HVAC vent and it seemed kind of restrictive, so really it's just kind of to keep the kids' fingers out of it. 2.5-inch casters, putting a couple of straight casters on and a couple of swivel casters to help move it around the shop. And we have to have some way to keep these end dust clean out doors closed. So I'm just using some case latches. These things are kind of finicky to install. I don't really love them, but if you know of a better way to do it, let me know. Just have to have some way to hold them closed until you need to clean it out. And then I'm laying out, I'm putting 6 2-inch screws in through the top into the side panels to hold the top on. Drill and countersink and screw them down in there. And that's pretty much the completion of this table. If you made it this far, you might be considering building one of these yourself. Check out my website. I've got filter kits, plans, hardware kits, and templates for a 48 by 30, a 48 by 48, and a 48 by 96 table. Hey, look, more oddball videos.